Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today, as you can see, it's going to be Mega Man 3 for the Nintendo Game Boy. I've done Let's Plays on all the NES Mega Man games, and figured it's finally time to try to get back to some of these Game Boy Mega Man games. So now, I've actually done Let's Plays on Mega Man 1 and 2 for Game Boy, but outside of that, I haven't had a lot of personal experience with Mega Man 3, 4, and 5 on the Game Boy. I remember giving 3 a try many years ago and just having one hell of a time with it. So I decided to give it another go a few weeks back, and I had a hell of a time with it again. But I persevered, I made it through the game, and I've since finished the game probably about 4 or 5 times now. So I think we're ready to do a Let's Play on it. I'm still most likely going to have a lot of trouble, but we'll see. As always with these Let's Plays, I make no guarantees on how well I do or how long it takes me. Let's just hope for the best. So before I jump right into it, I want to thank, as usual, my current Patreon backers. Thank you guys for your continued support. If you guys are interested in supporting the show through Patreon, as usual, check the description box below for information on how to do that. And thanks once again to those of you guys that are currently backing this show through Patreon. So let's go ahead and hit start. And so you've got 4 Robot Masters from Mega Man 3. And so what the Game Boy games have always done is they give you 4 Robot Masters in the beginning from whatever game you're currently playing. So Mega Man 3, we got 4 Robot Masters from the NES Mega Man 3. And then after that, they'll throw you into 4 Robot Masters from the next game in the franchise on the NES. So we're going to fight 4 Robot Masters from Mega Man 3, and then 4 Robot Masters from Mega Man 4, along with some Dr. Wily shenanigans in between. We're going to go ahead and pick Snake Man first, and the reason for that is that, for one, he's not too bad of a fight on his own, kind of like in the NES one, although you have less room to work with here, so it's easier to take damage and whatnot. But 2, he also gives us the Rush Coil ability. Now, what's kind of interesting about Mega Man 3 on Game Boy is when you hit start, you don't have Rush Coil to start off with. See, in the NES game, you did, and then you would get Rush Jet, and then Rush Marine. But in this, nope, you don't have it. But what you do have is the Charge Shot from Mega Man 4. It's actually a default ability in Mega Man 3 for Game Boy, which is kind of interesting. And of course, you've also got the slide mechanic from Mega Man 3 on the NES, which you do that by pressing down and A. So one thing you're going to hear me repeat a lot throughout this playthrough is I'm going to be complaining a lot about tight jumps, tight platforming, and things like that. The Mega Man series has always had a little bit of tight platforming, but in Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy, it's really to an absurd level. There's a lot of jumps that you just really cannot make on a run and jump, or at least not with my current setup. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm playing this through a Super Nintendo, through its Super Game Boy attachment, but I'm also playing the Super Nintendo in RGB through a upscaler, which is adding a little bit of input lag, and then I'm also going into a computer monitor, which might also add a little bit of input lag. And so basically what happens is, through all that, jumps in this game, as tight as they are extremely difficult to make consistently on this current setup I'm using without stopping completely. And what I did notice is that I don't have that problem in Mega Man's 1 or 2 on the Game Boy. And then I fired up Mega Man 4 after finishing this game for the first time, and noticed I didn't have as much of a problem in that either. And so Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy is actually a little bit laggier by default, a little less responsive in its controls than the other ones on the Game Boy. So it's something to keep in mind when you're playing this game. Even on a standard Game Boy, when I was practicing this, I did notice a little bit of lag compared to, like, controller input lag, compared to what I got on Mega Man's 1 and 2 in particular on the Game Boy. And going through my upscaler setup is not helping matters at all when I play this game. So, but even when you're playing this on, say, original hardware, on a traditional TV, not a modern HD display, not through an upscaler, where you're not going to have that, you know, inherent input lag from the extra devices in the chain. A lot of the tricks I'm going to show you, or my strategies I should say, they're not really tricks per se. They still apply to the original game on an original Game Boy, or just playing through the Super Game Boy or the GameCube Game Boy player on a standard traditional CRT TV. So you're going to want to just get on the edge and do your jumps. I didn't have to do that right there, but it doesn't hurt. So there's going to be actually, I think, a couple jumps on Snake Man's level coming up here, where you want to just really take it easy. You want to constantly shoot as you're pushing the screen forward, and like right here, it's a tight jump, just like that. It's actually one of those tight jumps I was talking about. And you need to be really careful in this section. Another tight jump right here. You notice that the game likes to just toss enemies right at you as you're pushing the screen forward in the most inconvenient parts, and that's a trait that pretty much carries over for the entire playthrough, unfortunately. Let's see if we can get back on the other side of Snake Man. And what you really want to do in these bosses is use your charge attack. Unfortunately, it looks like we might die. Yeah. There's just no room to dodge, unfortunately, so that was my fault, because what happened is I got to this boss without enough health. Now, you do get energy tanks in this game, much like in previous Mega Man games. So basically what happens, you don't get any energy tanks on Snake Man's level. There is actually that one energy tank that's there sort of like baiting you. I haven't even been able to get it yet. It's just not worth going for. And so basically what happens is when I start a fresh game and I pick Snake Man first so I can get Rush Coil, because Rush Coil is going to let me get other power-ups on other stages that you won't be able to get otherwise. Really weird design choice that they made you get Rush Coil separate. Like he's just there with Mega Man when you start Mega Man 3. But in Mega Man 3 on the NES, when you're playing Mega Man 3 on Game Boy, that's not the case, unfortunately, which is really an odd design choice in my eyes. Let's go ahead and pick Shadow Man. We'll go to Shadow Man. It doesn't actually really matter which order we take these bosses in now, because, you know, in the original Mega Man 3, you just had your basic pea shooter, basically. There was no charge function in that game. But in this, I can play bosses that might normally give me a hard time in Mega Man 3 on NES, but play them first in this because I have my charge ability. So, you know, Shadow Man's weakness in this, I believe, is Gemini Man's weapon. But I don't need that because I can just use my charge shot. And Shadow Man is actually a little bit easier in this one anyway, in my eyes, than he is in the original Mega Man 3. So, you know, after I defeat Snake Man, it honestly doesn't really matter what order I take the rest of the bosses in. I definitely want to use Snake Man on Gemini Man, just like in the NES Mega Man 3. But the other two, like Shadow Man and Spark Man, it really doesn't matter, honestly. As long as I've got that snake ability and I can use it on Gemini Man, I can take, you know, either of those other three bosses in any order I want. It really doesn't matter. But yeah, back on the Rush Coil thing, it was really a surprising design choice to me, and I'm not really sure why they did that. I really feel like they should have just given you Rush Coil out of the gate, and then given you Rush Jet immediately after. I think that would have helped with a lot of the frustrations in this game, a lot of the super tight platforming and whatnot. It's just a really, really odd design choice to me. Maybe they felt like, I don't know, they didn't want people beating this game too quickly, and they wanted to make it more frustrating than it probably should be, but that's just kind of like backwards design in my eyes. Let me know your thoughts on that if you've played this game before. I know the Mega Man series, particularly the NES games and the Game Boy games as well, a lot of them seem to be fairly divisive amongst Mega Man fans. There's a lot of different opinions that go around about these games. Lots of different opinions that are held in regards to these games. So, as usual, if you have any thoughts on this franchise, the Game Boy ones in particular, Mega Man 3 on Game Boy in particular, really interested to hear your thoughts. So we've got our first charge attack ready to go. We're just going to go ahead and unleash it once Shadow Man does his jump thing. I'm going to try to just slide past him. And that's it. One nice thing about Mega Man 3 on Game Boy, I will admit, is that the bosses don't really have that much invincibility time between hits. So you can charge, and it seems like your charge actually comes in faster too. So it doesn't take as long to charge in this as it does, say, in the original Mega Man 4 on NES, where that charge function was introduced. So, you know, bosses like Shadow Man, because of that, the combination of those two factors, it's not too bad, actually. You can actually take his life down really, really fast. Unfortunately, he's not as fast as he is in NES Mega Man 3. But one of the issues with this game, this is an issue with other Mega Man games on Game Boy as well, is that you don't have as much room to move around when you're fighting these bosses as you do in the NES games, unfortunately. The screen size is scrunched in more. I think the resolution on the games is a little bit lower, which is probably what causes that. And as a result, you don't have as much room to move around and dodge and things like that. So it's very easy to just get cornered, like you saw happen with both Snake Man and Shadow Man. And it's probably going to happen here with Spark Man, unfortunately. And here's one of the biggest pains on this level. And what I'm going to try to do is just get stuck like this, and then do that trick where I'm on the edge, and then I make my jump. That jump right there gave me so much trouble. And it's probably going to give you trouble too if you're brand new to this game and you feel like trying it out. So what I like to do is let that block fall down. If I have to take damage from it, that's fine. As long as I can get to the right of it on that small platform and then just make a slow timed jump, I'm okay. Otherwise, what happens is I mistime the jump because there's that tiny little ceiling above me. I'll hit that tiny little ceiling, and instead of making the jump, I'll fall into the pit as a result. And it's an extremely frustrating portion of this level. And there's going to be a couple of other portions in the game that are similar to that are just extremely infuriating. And it makes you wonder what the developers were thinking when they were putting some of these stages together. So just like in Mega Man 3 on Nintendo, these little blocks here will go upwards. Fortunately, there aren't any of those corkscrew, screw-like enemies that sort of like attach together in the air. So you don't have to worry about those guys like you do in the NES versions. So that section's actually easier in the Game Boy one, surprisingly. This section is not, though. There's going to be a bunch of spikes and things like that. And it's actually funny, they introduced some of these explosive devices, which were introduced in the later Mega Man games on the NES. There's a spike there, you gotta watch out for that. So spikes in the Mega Man series are extremely bad. Extremely bad. They will kill you instantly. And we got another section here with these blocks that go up. Now you'll notice, look at that section right there with the blocks. You'll notice that tiny little platform on the right side of those blocks is where I would stand to make my jump. You'll notice the column above that is much higher than the column was before on the previous jump I was complaining about. Now, if they designed that section like this, that first jump wouldn't be as much of a problem, but they didn't. They brought that top column almost down to the height of that block, which makes that jump extremely difficult. You really have to plan it out if you're going to do it consistently in this game. But that second one I just mentioned and showed off really isn't that bad. And again, it's just an example of, it makes you wonder what the developers were thinking when they were creating this game, when they were crafting this project. Mega Man 3 and Game Boy, I will say, kind of gives like this vibe of being unpolished in certain regards. It's a great looking game. It's a great sounding game. The soundtrack is much improved over Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy. Now, while I like the soundtrack on Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, it was kind of grating for a lot of people. And this sounds more like, you know, traditional Mega Man 3 music. It's really, really good. Yeah, I had a feeling I was going to die there, so... Now, I think Shadow Man might actually work on Spark Man, so we're going to go ahead and just try to use that. I've got one energy tank, but I really want to save it, and I really don't want to get a game over, because if I do, I have to do the whole stage over again. Yeah, Shadow Man works in the regular Mega Man 3 as well. Oh yeah, that's much easier. Much easier. Yeah, so generally when I play Mega Man games, I actually have the most fun just playing with my standard pea shooter and charge shot. But if I get desperate, if I get to a boss with like 0 lives left, I will use Robot Master weapons just to make sure I can get through the just to make sure I can get through the level without having to continue. Because when you continue, you got to do the whole level over again, and it's really, really not worth it. So Gemini Man here, what I might do, I might actually kill myself immediately, just so we don't run into that situation where I get to the boss, I get a game over. Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna do. So let's just slide. There's a hole right here, and I can basically just kill myself. So remember, in a game like Mega Man, you're not punished for continuing other than going back to the beginning of the stage. So if you're already at the beginning of the stage, why not just kill yourself and get all your lives back? You know, there's no scoring system in the game, there's no punishment for not getting a 1 credit clear, or a 1 life clear run, or something like that. So when I'm doing these Let's Plays, I would rather just kill myself, get some lives back, to prevent us from having to do an entire stage over again because I made some stupid mistake or something. Which has happened before. It's happened before in many, many games. So, you know, the idea of these Let's Plays is to kind of show you how I play the game, but also to show you kind of how to get through the game, and to show you the game, and not show you the same sections over and over again. Because if you really wanted to do that, you would just find some other video and put it on repeat or something. So for these dragonfly-looking enemies, you basically just let them fly past you, and then they come down to your level. And then you can basically just shoot them as they get on your level. And it was the exact same mechanic in Mega Man 3 on NES as well. So even with dying, we actually made some pretty good progress. We're already almost halfway through the game, which is quite nice. And so what happens is after you defeat the first 4 Robot Masters, you go to a Dr. Wily stage, which has you fight a mini-boss. And then after you fight that mini-boss, and it's a really, really short stage too, you'll fight that mini-boss, and then the Mega Man 4 Robot Masters will open up. And here's yet another section we can use Rush Coil, so you can get up here, destroy these bubbles. Now you can actually cut through all these bubbles with 1 charge shot, but I like to destroy them individually because sometimes these guys will draw some extra lives, and extra lives are good. You know, if I had 1 life left, I wouldn't have killed myself at the beginning of this stage. I would have trucked through. But since I had 0 lives, I was like, you know, I don't want to risk it, and I don't want to use an E-Tank. I really want to save my E-Tanks for the last level in the game. Because Wily can be a pain in this game, but if you have the buffer of lots of energy tanks, then it's not really a big deal. So I'm going to try to kill all these guys, actually, all the ones I can, just to see what they drop. I have gotten some extra lives from this part before, so that's why I prefer to do this. You notice this jump right here I have to make. This is another one of those examples where they are sort of trying to troll you intentionally. Like, you can't jump all the way up, and so if I jump and I hit that ceiling, I'm not going to make this jump. So I have to get off the edge like this, then make my jump. So lots of platforming in this where the developers just seem like they hate you. They really seem like they hate you in this game. But now right here, you'll notice this jump doesn't have a block above me. So it's little design things like that that can really change the flow of a game. And it can change the flow of the game for better or for worse. So in the case of Mega Man 3, there's a lot of blocks of you like this, where you can't reach your maximum height when you're jumping. Now in this part it's fine, but it's when you have to make a jump that can kill you instantly if you miss it, that makes it very stressful and not that much fun. So rather than focusing on the jump itself, you're focusing on the ceiling height and making sure your character is positioned properly. And there was very little of that in classic Mega Man on the NES, and it was really odd to me that they decided to, you know, leave that relatively unpolished for the Game Boy versions. Some of the Game Boy versions, this one in particular. Mega Man 1 on Game Boy did have some really tight jumps, but I went back and I played through that after immediately finishing this game, and I was really surprised at how much easier most of its platforming was compared to the platforming in this game. And a lot of people complain about the difficulty in Mega Man 1 for Game Boy. But I find that Mega Man 3 is much less refined in certain regards. It's much more refined in graphics and sound and things like that, but it's less refined in its level structure and layout and flow. Again, like I said, it really feels like the developers didn't want you to play this game. That sort of thing. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but the thing is, like, especially coming from Mega Man 3 flowed so well. The NES Mega Man 3 flowed so well. All they had to do was just bring many of the same structures, level structures, to this, and they would have had a winner on their hands easily. Now, I understand with a lot of the Game Boy Mega Man games, they wanted to mix things up a little bit. Pretty much all the Mega Man Game Boy games have mixed things up. But the levels, you know, with being mixed up, it just seems like there wasn't as much attention and detail paid to the platforming, which can be extremely frustrating. So here we go. Normal jump. My head's not hitting the ceiling, so that's fine with me. And I've got these dragonfly things. Just like in the NES one, you got some platforming with the dragonfly things. Really wasn't expecting to take damage from that. It's okay. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna end up getting killed, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to defeat Gemini Man in one hit. Basically, one hit's gonna kill me. Oh, yeah, see? That was close. It's okay, we got him this time. But that's what I was talking about. Like, if I made it to him the first time with 0 lives and I had no health, I would have either been forced to use an E-Tank, or, I would have had to die. And like I said, I really don't want to use my E-Tanks right now, even if I get desperate, because I really want them for Wily's stage. Wily himself has multiple forms, and it's very difficult to actually, to dodge his projectiles and whatnot. There's also a boss before Wily, before you start his final level, that can also be a pain, and you guys will see what I'm talking about once we get to him. So this is going to take us to our I'll just call him the mid-game boss. And we actually have to fight this guy twice. So let's just jump right into this. Now, there's going to be a little bit of platforming here as well. Some of those disappearing blocks. The Mega Man series is rather infamously known for, make their first appearance here. So we're just going to wait here. There we go. And we're going to wait again. Now, these things also make an appearance. They are much harder to deal with in Mega Man 3 on Game Boy. So basically what happens is you just have to jump at the right time when you touch them. But the timing in this is much more difficult, especially with the added input lag going through my upscaler and the HD TV I'm using. And from this point on, we pretty much get Mega Man 4 boss music now. Which is kind of a buzzkill, actually, because I really like the Mega Man 3 boss music compared to the stuff in Mega Man 4. Pretty good fight on that guy overall, actually. Usually I take more hits. But he's got a pretty set pattern. And you gotta watch out for when he bounces across the screen. You want to do your slide after that. And this pretty much takes us to our Mega Man 4 bosses. So what we're going to do is we're going to play Dustman. He is... this is probably the hardest level. Well, that or Dive Man. Dive Man is pretty tough as well. But Dustman gives us Rush Jet, which can help us with some sections on some of the other Robot Masters. So... And I highly recommend just playing like this. Pick Dustman. Go through the garbage. That is his level. No pun intended. I just realized this is a garbage plant. But I have many negative feelings about this level, personally. I just feel it's very clunky. There's a lot of pixel-perfect jumping that's required. And it's just not that much fun to play. Lots of instant death scenarios, things like that. Whereas Dustman's level on the original Mega Man 4, I think, is a pretty solid stage. And most of the levels in Mega Man 4 on the NES are pretty solid. They're, like, actually really good levels when I think about it, and I'm really thinking about it. Particularly compared to this. But, Let's go ahead and pick that up. We're gonna also have to jump over here. No, it's the next screen. Alright, so there's some kind of horrible enemy placement in certain areas. So on this screen, you have to jump down to the right. Otherwise, you're gonna get hit by that guy right there. Guaranteed. And you're gonna find there's some enemy placement like that throughout, littered throughout this game as well, which is extremely frustrating. So this is another pixel-perfect jump you gotta make. And then this guy is right here. When he jumps high like that, if you time it just right, you can actually slide under him. Let's try to bait that guy like that, and then jump over, and then another pretty tight jump there, because that's one of those jumps where your head hits the ceiling, so you actually can't go as far as you think you can. And we're just going to do a charge attack here to kill this guy in one hit. Alright, so I believe this is a checkpoint right here. And we gotta watch out for this section as well, because you can get crushed and then you die. And we're gonna go ahead and just use our charge attack here, just to cut through multiples of these at once. Alright, we're gonna come back like this. We're gonna do a couple rounds like this, just to make sure we can get through safely. Alright, that was close. And now we're just gonna bolt right through. Alright, that was actually a good section. A lot of times I die there. It's one of those sections that's not really inherently difficult, but if you're not paying attention and you're just rushing through, you're probably gonna die. And that's another one of those pixel-perfect jumps I was talking about. And there's gonna actually be an extra life up here, which we're gonna go ahead and try to get. It's easier to get if you have Drill Man's weapon. But if you... that little trick there, you can actually get it by using Rush Coil. Oh, and we just lost our life. Because enemies respawn almost instantly in this game. So we've actually got to do this section over and over again. Or not over and over, but over again. It's okay, not a big deal. So we'll just try to take it slow again this time like I did last time. Got some health. So now I have to be really careful. I might end up using an E-tank just so we don't have to redo this whole stage again. See, that's a double-edged sword, though, because then I'm going to be stuck on another level that, well, I'll have 0 lives when I start the next stage, so it's like, do I really want to use an E-tank? I mean, Dustman himself in this game is not a very difficult boss, so I might not actually need to use an E-tank. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's always the possibility I could actually die before I get there, so... And I don't think this extra life is going to reappear either. I think now ooh, stuttering like crazy. I can't talk right now. Now that we've collected it, it's gonna... well, we gotta do the whole level over anyway. Austin, you're just overanalyzing things. Alright, so we just hit the B to continue. And you can kind of see where this game can get insanely frustrating really quickly. When I first played this game, I had to continue, I swear, probably like half a dozen times in order to get to Dustman himself. Memorizing the enemy locations and things like that was a part of it. Like that shield guy that just flies up right at you on that first screen. I always forgot that he was there, and he would just slam right into me and things like that. And then this pixel-perfect jumping, look at how tight those jumps are. It's just absolutely insane. And And imagine playing this back in the day on the original Game Boy with its crappy screen. It just really makes you wonder what the developers were going for when they were making this game. Now, don't get me wrong, like, Mega Man 1 on Game Boy is really, really tough. It's a tough game, and I know it's frustrated many, many players out there. But this just raises the bar in terms of difficulty. Like, why? It should have... Like, Mega Man 2 to some people was too easy. Mega Man 1 to some people was too hard. And instead of trying to find a finer balance between Mega Man 1 and 2, they took the Mega Man 1 style and expanded on that instead of trying to balance things better. And that, to me, is just really, really dumbfounding. I really don't understand why they made this one harder than Mega Man 1. It just seemed backwards, you know. So many people thought Mega Man 1 on Game Boy was so challenging. But a lot of people, particularly people that have, you know, checked out my previous Let's Plays of, you know, Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, say it was way too easy. And, instead of, you know, dialing it back a little bit, you know, making a game that's kind of in between those two games, they make a game that's way harder than the original Mega Man on Game Boy. It's interesting going back and playing some of these games and just, like, sort of thinking about things from a more experienced perspective. Like, thinking about things that I didn't really think about too much as a kid. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't notice that Mega Man 2 on Game Boy was considerably easier than the first one. I played them both and I just enjoyed them both. I loved both of those games on Game Boy. But now when I go back and I analyze them as an adult, it's interesting to see just... Oh, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm just gonna shut up now. Let's try to get this extra life again. We're probably gonna die. We just died. What I should have done is just pushed forward. Probably should have just pushed forward. I don't really need... I mean, I want the extra life, but I don't want the extra life if I'm just gonna die trying to get it, basically. So... Alright, let's not die this time. I've got one life left, I'm okay. We'll skip the extra life. But there's gonna be more pixel-perfect platforming involved, unfortunately. And you guys will see what I mean in just a moment. So basically, if you tackle Drill Man first, you can actually get that extra life from the top way, which is considerably easier. But since we don't have Drill Man, we'd have to get it with that trick. And I'm kind of 50-50 using the trick that I showed you. Wow. See, this is the point where I'd rip the Super Game Boy out of my Super Nintendo and throw it across the room. But I'm better than that, guys. We're not gonna do that. And it's really quite amazing that, like, this is the level where you get Rush Jet. Like, why couldn't they have given you Rush Jet on a different level? Where, you know, because Rush Jet would be really, really handy on this level. You know, just something to think about. Oh, we almost died there. That was close. Rush Jet would have been extremely handy on this level. With some of its, you know, pixel-perfect timing that's required on the jumps. And I was already halfway over that one platform. It was really amazing that I didn't make that jump. Alright, I guess we're gonna try it again. Now, something I could do, if I really wanted to, is I can drop Rush Coil here. And go like that. Which is really dumb. It's really dumb. And there's actually another section in the game where I can do that too. Might even be this next screen here. Yep, they forced me to do it. It's not even optional now. I have to do it. And Rush Coil doesn't just appear on the top of the spikes. So, extremely aggravating stuff that Mega Man 3 on Game Boy brings to the table. Now you gotta be careful on that part too, because if you go off screen and kill that guy and you go back, he's there again. That's how bad the enemy respawns are in this game. Extremely aggravating stuff once more. We're just gonna try to skip through all these guys, just use sliding to get past them, kind of like this. Oops, still got a hit. That's okay. Alright, we're actually very close to the boss now. Now, as far as these Mega Man 4 bosses, I'm really not familiar with what the weaknesses are for some of them. So now I know that, Dive Man works against Drill Man, but I'm not sure what works against Dust Man. And if any of you guys out there watching know what the Robot Master weakness is for the Mega Man 4 side of the bosses in this game, feel free to drop a comment below and let me know. Yeah, so Dustman himself is not a very difficult boss fight. He does his sucking ability, which sort of pulls you in, just like in Mega Man 4. And then when he shoots out dust particles at you, or trash particles, you just stand in place, you just jump straight up at the right time. They explode into 4 projectiles at diagonal angles, and then you'll just avoid them as long as you're staying straight. So we finally got past that level. That was like, I think, probably 15 minutes of my Let's Play, just on that one stage alone. So, kind of embarrassing, but it's actually normal for me. I've played through this game multiple times now on Twitch, and I've gotten stuck on Dustman's stage now multiple times, which is really unfortunate. I really don't know what I want to do now, because there's just, I think I have 0 lives. So, I mean, what I could do is just get a game over again and get a couple lives back, because I don't want to get to the boss. Yeah. It's like, they're like, oh, you know, we'll just give you a pit so you can get your lives back. It's right there. Alright, we're gonna press B to continue. So, we got an extra life here, which actually puts us ahead. Probably could have just used it without getting a game over, but now we've got 3 lives instead of just 1, which is what we would have had if I didn't get a game over. So, for these things, you just gotta wait for them to switch up. You'll notice like the blocks will blink a little bit, and then they'll switch the direction that the spikes are pointing. Fortunately, those spikes don't kill you in one hit, so something to keep in mind. I used to think that they would kill you in one hit, but they actually do not. Let's wait for these guys to appear. It's best to just wait for these guys to come out. Don't rush it. Same with this part right here. And we don't need that health pickup. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use, oh, it's not going to let me. gonna use Rush Jet. That part is a major, major pain. Oops, we missed Flip Top, unfortunately. And I'm gonna try something here. Because the timing on these things is extremely tight. I have a tendency of missing the bottom one when I get to these E-tanks. And also what happens is sometimes you'll actually hit your head on the one above you, which doesn't happen in the NES Mega Man 3s. And so you can actually get forced back down to those spikes. But if you drop Rush Coil, you fall and Rush puts you back up. That was actually the first time I tried that. I'm glad to know it works. So... Alright, so for this part, we have to jump at the right time. And we're just going to go ahead and kill this guy, and then we're going to use Rush Coil to get up. Alright, so we should be close to the boss fight now. And I took damage, whatever. Don't really care. Just see if we can bait these guys down here, just like that. Now if you wanted to, you could actually grind out for power-ups here. Say if your health was low or something like that. But we're not going to do that. And I think I might be able to take out Drill Man without an issue. Let's see. Okay, I wasn't expecting him to do that. Normally he just starts coming right at you, but... So we're just gonna dash across the room like... Whoa, that was weird. Yeah, see, in Mega Man 4 on NES, he just pops right back up. But usually wherever you are on the screen, you can just dash back and forth. In the NES one, he pops up really fast, but he goes up into the air too, whereas in this, he just kind of like wiggles his way up. There we go. Yeah, so the issue with some of these bosses is that if they get you cornered, you sometimes have no way to jump over them. I mean, I guess technically you could. If you really wanted to take the boss fight slow, you could bust out Rush Coil or Rush Jet and do the whole fight with those abilities, but that's not fun to me. Like, I don't want to go to my, pause menu over and over again to switch back to those, and then switch back to my main ability, which is my charge shot. It's just, it's not even worth it. Alright, so we'll go ahead and suffer through Dive Man. Dive Man is the other really challenging level. And then Dive Man himself can be a bit of a pain as well. So Dive Man's level is much more challenging here than it was in the NES game. There's a lot more spikes, similar to how it was in, say, Bubble Man's level in Mega Man 2, but it's even worse here. It's actually much more tricky here. And for those of you guys that are really familiar with the NES Mega Man 4, but not this, you'll know exactly what I mean. The music sounds really great, though, on the Game Boy. They did a really fantastic job of bringing these tunes over to the Game Boy sound hardware. They did a really, really good job with that. But man, it's just... one of the things about Mega Man 3 here on the Game Boy is it's just so hard to appreciate everything with how difficult everything is. Like, unnecessarily difficult. There's challenge, then there's just, okay guys, you kind of went overboard. You know, there's is that kind of challenge, basically. And the NES Mega Man games, particularly the first few, they usually had a better balance of difficulty, challenge, and whatnot. They had hard parts, but, you know, they weren't the entire game. Whereas this is just the hard parts. They are much more numerous than they were in pretty much any NES Mega Man game. There we go. We got the respawning guy because I was just off screen at the wrong moment. And it's really interesting that they changed so much from the existing levels, because a lot of the existing levels were really good, actually. And you know what's interesting is I played Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy just to see what it was like after beating this game for the first time. And I was like, these levels flow so much better in this version. At least based on the first 4 levels I played. They're more faithful to the Mega Man 4 originals. Whereas these levels are, you know, again, it's like the developer hates you or something like that. Or they didn't actually want you playing their game. Alright, so this is probably the trickiest part on this stage. There's constant spike balls you gotta worry about. The spike balls will kill you in one hit. So you've gotta take your time here. You wanna wait till the water is at its highest peak if possible. These explosive spike bombs actually make a reappearance. They are in Mega Man 4. But you don't have constant spike balls next to them that can kill you in one hit that you gotta watch out for as well. And these platforms like this are a pain to deal with as well. You gotta get your jump timing just right. I'm gonna trigger this guy and then come back here and just sit here. The hit detection on these spike balls is a little weird as well, so you really want to just give them as much room to go past you as possible. Now, one thing that's also interesting about this game is that it doesn't have alternate paths like you do in Mega Man 4 for NES. So you've got some of the same levels. Well, I guess in this case you've got Dive Man stage, which you don't have the hole you can fall into, which gives you the claw ability, or the wire claw ability, like you do in the original Mega Man 4 game. Same with Mega Man 4 itself on Game Boy. You do go to Pharaoh Man stage, which was one of the other alternate path levels you could take. There was a secret area you can go to that would give you the balloon ability. So Dive Man on Mega Man 3 for Game Boy is just really, really tricky. He's just constantly pummeling out these homing missiles much faster than he does in the NES game, and they're much larger too, so they're a little bit trickier to deal with. Alright, got him. So we're about 50 minutes in, not making as good progress, good of progress, jeez, I can't talk today. Not making as good of progress as I was hoping, but that's, you know, honestly, that's what I was expecting, with Mega Man 3 on Game Boy. It's a very, very frustrating game. And kudos to anyone that's ever finished this before, or, you know, has put the time in to finish it. I'm sure you guys know it was probably a frustrating experience on your first several playthroughs. I have talked to some people that say, like, to them, this is an easy game, and I'm not really sure where they're coming from in that regard. To me, it just seems like a major pain in the ass through and through, and as such, it's just not that much fun to play, compared to some of the other Game Boy Mega Man games I've experienced, as well as just Mega Man 3 and 4 on the NES individually. You would be much better off playing those games in my eyes than playing this one. Fortunately, we're on Skullman stage, and Skullman stage isn't too bad in this one. Just take your time here. We're gonna wait for these guys to pop out. Alright, I'm dead. Yep. So I really should have just waited for that guy to fly down to me when I was on that larger platform. So you notice there's a lot of parts in the game like that too, where like, oh, you fall on spikes, you're in your invincibility phase period. So when you take damage in this game, oops, switch over to a different palette. On the Super Game Boy, you can actually press X to switch to an alternate palette. Now we are playing on the Super Game Boy, and I would show you the different palette options and whatever. Just the default Super Game Boy palette options, but I've got the screen actually zoomed in through the FrameMeister upscaler. So when I go to the palette options, you guys actually don't see them. And I've got the video cropped as well in Sony Vegas, so you guys don't see the Super Game Boy border or anything like that. So all you get is this nice upscaled Super Game Boy through the Super Nintendo picture. But yeah, Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy is not a Super Game Boy enhanced game. I think this came out in 1992, and that was before the Super Game Boy was even a thing yet. And some Game Boy games that came out after the Super Game Boy was available do have custom palettes you can select, which is really neat, and they'll have custom borders and things like that. The Super Game Boy was a really awesome feature, and I really wish Nintendo revisited the idea after the Game Boy player for the GameCube. Like, it would have been great to have like a DS player or something like that. I would have bought one of those in a heartbeat so I can do DS game capture. Unfortunately, I'm stuck doing emulation, which I guess emulation in this day and age on a modern system is not a big deal, but back when DS emulation was not that good on my hardware, it would have been nice to have something like a DS player. Alright, got another E-Tank. Which you might end up just using one on this boss fight. Depending on how well we do, there's the possibility I could die again. And then have to do the whole level over again. Oh, extra life. I like that. So those skull guys you can just kill in one hit with your charge attack. And so now that we've destroyed Drill Man, I can actually show you what happens here. And use Drill Man to blow through these things. Although not particularly useful. What would have been more useful is if they gave you health or something like that. And it's one of the interesting things about this game, and not really interesting in a good way. It's, they oftentimes want to give you weapon power-ups and not health. And so what you find yourself doing is just being in situations where you don't have health. You've got all the weapon ammunition in the world, but you pretty much have no health. And that can get a little aggravating, to say the least. You didn't really have that problem in a lot of other Mega Man games. You know, they would sort of dish out the health and the weapon drops a little bit more evenly. But in this one, it's very, very heavily swayed towards the weapon drops. Maybe they're trying to hint at something. Maybe I should be using the weapons more often. Maybe that's my problem. I don't know. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and use an E-Tank since we have quite a few. I'd rather save this life for Wily's stage if I can. So one of the issues with a lot of these bosses on Mega Man 3 on Game Boy is it's harder to control their patterns and get them into a very specific set pattern. In Mega Man 4 on the NES, it was easy to get them locked into a very specific pattern. Specific bosses anyway. So like Dive Man, it was easy to get them locked in. Dustman actually is kind of like Dustman in this, so he's just whatever. Skullman in particular, very easy to just have him do the same pattern over and over. But in the Game Boy version, they seem like they just kind of want to do whatever the hell they want, which is really frustrating. So what's going to happen here is we're going to fight this mini-boss again. Oh no, that's later, sorry. We're going to fight a different boss, and kind of like in Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, where I think you fight Quint or something like that. And he gives you that Pogo ability. Was it Mega Man 2? I think it was Mega Man 2 on Game Boy. It's a similar mechanic in this, or not really mechanic, but a similar thing here where you have to fight an alternate boss. Not an alternate boss, but another boss before going to Wily's final stage. And he gives you a special ability that you have to use on the final boss. And you guys will see what I'm talking about once we get through him. So he basically bounces up and down, and he'll either shoot high or shoot low. I don't know if there's any rhythm or rhyme to it. And then he throws these blocks at you. And he does a lot of damage. You gotta watch out for him. Oh, I thought he was gonna go low. Wow, I'm surprised he didn't even go low once. Sometimes he'll alternate it, sometimes he won't. There seems to be some RNG involved, unfortunately, so... Which the toughest Mega Man bosses are always the ones that have a hefty amount of randomization to them. See, there we go. He went low that time. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. He does so much damage. Wow. I was not expecting to die there, but that's okay, because we got all our lives back. Unintentionally. Alright, so I guess we'll try it again. Wow, he takes over a third of your health away. I should be doing a much better job at reading that, but you only have a few frames to figure out if you need to jump over him or if you need to slide under him. So, it's tricky. No, I have no doubt there's a Robot Master weapon that works well against him. I obviously haven't figured that out yet. Again, like I said, when I play these Mega Man games, a lot of times what I do is I just use the standard shot. There we go. Perfect kill. Now, if only that happened on the first try. It's okay. So, much like Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy, we get another special ability, and like I said, we actually have to use this on Wily's final form. Wily himself actually has two forms. So this is the final stage in the game. This is it, guys. Probably about 25 minutes late, but we finally got here. And some nice visuals. I mean, it's undeniable that this is a good-looking Game Boy game. It's just, to me, it's a shame it wasn't better in other areas. Great looking, great sounding game, but extremely, extremely frustrating stage layouts and designs. The extra, slightly laggier controls compared to the other Mega Man games on Game Boy do not help its case at all. Alright, so I'm going to take my time here, because there's a couple parts, yeah, right here, where if you actually fall down too quickly, you'll actually just get hit by some enemies. Again, some more troll stage design. Alright, we're just going to skip these dudes. And come down here, kill this guy. And what I'm going to do is just use Rush Jet. I don't even want to mess with this thing, because it's so finicky. Same with right here. And believe it or not, we're going to actually have to use Rush Jet right here. Just like this. And then jump. So really, really tricky level design here. And we're going to actually use Dive Man's weapon to destroy this thing. And we're going to get close to these spikes and then just dash immediately. And just do it again and again. And we're going to switch back to our main shot. Watch out for these clamps, or these chomper things, whatever you want to call them. Now what's tricky about this section is it's multiple screens high, and if you get hit, generally what happens is you'll fall 3 or 4 screens. It's really difficult to recover. Alright, so this part you need to take slow as well. We basically get a flashback from Dustman's stage, except now there are spikes. So you really need to take it slow, figure out where the spikes are going to appear. And then make your move based on that. Watch out for this pipe above, because it'll actually crush you and kill you in one hit. We're just going to dash through here, like that. That section was actually quite a pain when I first played through this game. Now, some of the challenge in this game can be avoided just by you playing slow and methodical and just like analyzing your situations, but there are other parts in the game where doing that doesn't really help you all that much. But on this final level, there are definitely parts where you can benefit from just taking them really, really slow. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and use Drill Man right here. And then we're going to use Rush Coil. So we got another energy tank. We got plenty of energy tanks, which is very nice. And there's Flip Top. Let's see what he gives us. He gave us a weapon refill. Flip Top doesn't seem to be very useful in this game. I mean, I guess he was never really that useful even in Mega Man 4, which is where he was introduced. But, I mean, sometimes he could give you good power-ups in that. He'll give you some extra lives sometimes. Give you an E-tank, something like that. Which in this game, you need those things badly. Extra lives in particular. Alright, I'm going to use Rush Coil again. Get a bit of a health refill. Alright, so this is that mini-boss we're gonna have to fight again. We fought him after the first 4 Robot Masters. We just get to fight him again. Alright, good fight. We didn't take a single hit. That's actually kind of unusual for me. Alright, gonna take it slow here as well. Jump over that guy. And we're gonna use Rush Coil yet again. I can actually use the health. And we should actually be getting close to Wily himself. And now I believe we're gonna actually have to fight all of our Robot Masters again. And I'm gonna say peace out to this guy. Just fly right over him, like so. It's one of the beautiful things about having the rush abilities in Mega Man 3 and on the NES. Now, if only they gave them to you a little bit earlier in the Game Boy version of Mega Man 3. Sorry, the Game Boy version of Mega Man 3. That's right, we don't actually fight all the Robot Masters again in this. I totally forgot. I don't know why I thought we were going to fight them again. I think it's probably because I was playing other Mega Man games recently. And I just died. Now, I think the checkpoint might be a little bit far away. No, we're actually relatively close. Yeah. I guess we're just going to fly over this guy again. So you basically gotta hit this guy in his eyes. And this is what I was doing wrong. I was sliding too late the first time. And then basically what happens here is once you destroy this part, Wily appears at the top, and then you use that special ability you gained from that that boss before Wily's tower, and it's this weapon right here. And unfortunately this doesn't do a whole lot of damage against Wily himself, but fortunately Wily doesn't do a ton of damage to you at this part. And there we go, we just beat Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy. And we didn't even use an energy tank at Wily. I should have just used an E-tank the first time, since we had so many, but I don't know why I thought that we were going to fight all the Robot Masters again. It just... I finished this game multiple times, and the fact is, I did a 10-hour shift at work last night. I came home and recorded a Let's Play, and then I recorded another Let's Play, which was this. So it's been a long day for me, and you know, as of the end of this video. It's been quite a long day for me, actually. So that's probably it. I'm just a little sleep deprived. My brain's not fully functioning right now, I suppose. But, yeah, this whole time I thought we were going to fight the Robot Masters again. That's funny. But there you have it, guys. That is Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy. Mega Man 3 on Game Boy. I don't want to come off as the complainer like I did in my Mega Man 5 Let's Play several years ago. But I definitely have some major issues with this game, and it's a shame that I do, because there's a lot of things that are great about the game. Like, again, the graphics and the sound are fantastic on this game. Really top-notch for the Game Boy. But man, that difficulty is just truly unfair in ways that don't benefit the experience at all. There's challenge, and then there's stupid challenge, and a lot of Mega Man 3's challenge in the Game Boy version of the game is it's stupid challenge, unfortunately. And that kind of challenge to me is, you know, basically the result of like poor design, poor level design, things like that. Brings it down a lot. It's really tough to recommend this game because you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall half the time on many of these stages in the game. And, you know, I consider myself a pretty decent player. Like, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I suck at video games. Like, I've been playing video games forever, right? You guys have seen me do a lot of Let's Plays. You see me do a lot of difficult games. I think you guys know where my capabilities lie. And I'll at least say I'm probably above average when it comes to video game skill, you know, retro gaming skill. And if I'm having problems with this, a lot of the normal people or casual players or people that are just fans of the series that maybe aren't as good of players, maybe they don't have as much experience, maybe they're not as good with their 2D platformers and precision and timing and jumps and stuff like that, they'll have a hell of a time with this game. And it makes it very difficult for me to recommend this to other people. It's a tough recommendation. And it's just such a shame because I sit here going through the game for my 5th or 6th time now, and I'm like, man, this music's awesome. And like these sprites are nice and chunky. Like they've got this really nice extra like pixelated look for the larger sprites in the game, which is kind of interesting. But that level design, like, it just boggles my mind why, like, many of the levels are laid out the way they are, and the enemy placement is where it is. Like, why is this guy even in, like, half the game? Like, where they place that guy, you just run to the right and he smashes right into you, because you can't see ahead. They should have just left that guy out completely, you know? Like, design choices like that. I mean, I know, like, for that shield guy in particular, it was a little bit of an issue in some of the NES ones, but you had way more screen space to work with. Like, you could see them coming at you in Mega Man 4 and 5 and 6 on the NES. But in Mega Man 3 and the Game Boy, it just slams right into you. You can't even react to it, and it's just pure memorization. And Mega Man has never been completely about pure memorization, and that's one of the big areas that Mega Man 3 on Game Boy falters, is it becomes about, like, rote memorization. When lots of other Mega Man games have had difficult parts, and you've had to probably practice at them a little bit, but this is like, you better get down, write down the jumps, and study them, because if you don't, you're going to die. That's the kind of game it is, unfortunately. So, it's very strict in the timing required for many of its jumps, and it's very strict in, you know, where the enemies are placed. If you don't know that they're coming, you're going to take damage, and they do a lot of damage in this game, so there's a good chance you're going to die before you even see the end of these levels. And that really kills the fun factor to me, you know, really kills the fun factor to me. And I noticed several later Mega Man games started to do this too. Rockman and Forte, and Mega Man 8, and Mega Man 7 specifically. You know, when it came to the console Mega Man games. But the NES Mega Man games were really good about not being about rote memorization for the main levels in particular. And it's a shame that this one is. And part of that in the original Mega Man's could be that your sprite is just so much smaller in that game not so much smaller, but the screen, the resolution is larger than it is in the Game Boy versions. The screen space that you have to work with is much wider. And maybe part of the issue with, say, Mega Man 7 and on is that your sprite became larger, much larger than it was in the NES ones. And so, once again, like the Game Boy games, you had less room to work with. And that could be one of the reasons why those were much more challenging as well. Oh, Mega Man. This just makes me want to play some Mega Man 3 on the NES now. I might have to do that. So yeah, for those of you guys that missed it a little while back, I actually did a Mega Man stream 2 weeks back to back on YouTube. So the first week we played through Mega Man's 1 through 3. The second week we played through Mega Man's 4 through 6. And I had a much greater time playing each of those games. Even Mega Man 5 and 6, which I'm not the hugest fan of compared to the others on the NES. They're still pure gold, I think, compared to Mega Man 3 on Game Boy. I might be coming off as overly harsh, but as I get older, I get more into the mindset of don't waste your time with mediocre games. You know, why play this when you can just play the NES ones or better Game Boy ones? Mega Man 1 on Game Boy is more enjoyable in my opinion. Even Mega Man 2. I know a lot of people don't like that. They like to rail on it, but I think it's a decent game for what it is. It's not going to frustrate you like this will, and I think that's worth its weight in gold. So, but yeah. Point is, if you want to see some actual Mega Man 3 action on the NES, I do have those live stream archives you can check out. I also have Let's Plays of all 6 NES Mega Man games, and then I did a recent re-record of Mega Man 1, so check back in the video history and you can check that out too if you want. I do plan on revisiting lots of my other Mega Man Let's Plays from the NES, so I plan on redoing Mega Man's 2 through 6 as dedicated Let's Plays just like this video here. And so if you want some Mega Man action, we've got plenty of Mega Man action on this channel. We got a couple of the Game Boy ones done. As of now, we've got the first 3 Game Boy games done. I am going to try to tackle Mega Man 4 and 5 on Game Boy. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to be a soonish thing, or if it's going to be many months from now, or a year or 2 from now. I'm not sure, but it is going to happen. And then once that happens, I hope to try to tackle some of the later Mega Man games like Part 7, Part 8, Rockman and Forte, stuff like that. And we'll just sort of wing it from there. And then hopefully revisit some of the Mega Man X games as well. So, alrighty guys, well with that, I'm pretty much out. I hope you guys enjoy this Let's Play, as rambly and frustrated it was. If you're brand new to my channel, please click that subscribe button to get followed with my channel here. I've got tons of Let's Plays and many more to come. For all those of you guys already subbed, thank you for your usual support. I really appreciate it as always. And until the next video, take it easy.